Hari Om. Let's start with the prayer. Om Samasta Jana Kalyani Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanura Mardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Bande Jagadgurum Tvameva Mata Cha Pitattvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakatvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravidam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Amadeva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Gurudeva Deva. Hari Om. We are doing the 8th chapter of Panchadashi. Panchadashi is a text by Vidyaranya Swami, and as the name indicates, it has the 15 chapters, and we mentioned the first 5 chapters deal with the Sat aspect of it and its analysis of Satchidananda, and the second 5 chapters deal with the Chit aspect, and the last 5 deals with the Ananda aspect. So this we are dealing now the Chit aspect, consciousness, and in that we are doing at the 8th chapter. In the 7th chapter we are talking about the Atma, about the self, that is essentially Shri Vidyaranya. One should know oneself. That is the whole topic of the 7th chapter. That means the analysis of what is to be known and why one should know and all that. Now we are looking at more general about the Kutastha Chaitanyam. Kutastha Chaitanyam is that the original consciousness that was discussed in the 6th chapter as the Ghadakasha, Jalakasha and Meghakasha and Mahakasha, the 4 of the spaces from the space point. This is Kutastha Chaitanyam, is that part of the pure consciousness that is falling on a particular, this one is called Kutastha Chaitanyam. And the illumination of the Kutastha Chaitanyam is, and the Chidabhasa is being now analyzed. So when the general light falling on a particular the body, mind, intellect, or in the buddhi, and that illumines, and that whole buddhi is illumined as a general. And now whenever thought rises in the mind, there is a illumination of the thought by the same consciousness, because whenever there is a subtle body, it gets reflected, and pure consciousness is all pervading. It is falling on the thought as well, and that thought is being reflected. The consciousness is getting reflected by the thought, and that's called the knowledge of the thought, or I am conscious of the thought. Here Vidyaranya using an analogy of a pure sunlight, and that is equal to all pervading Satchidananda, and that part of sunlight is illumining a wall, and that is essentially we are talking about the Sakshi Chaitanyam or Kutastha Chaitanyam. So even though the whole light is all over, only that part of the sunlight that is falling on the wall is what we are calling it as a Kutastha Chaitanyam, or specific in terms of the wall wise. But it's a general light only. Just as the light is falling on my face, light is falling on my hand, light is falling on the wall, that general light that falls on my hand is different from that general light, that part of that light that's falling on my face is different from the light that's falling on the wall. Even though the light that is falling is illuminating everything in here, it cannot be parted, but for reference sake, from the point of the hand, that light falling on the hand is different from the point of the face. That light falling on the face is different. So we are differentiating from the point of the reference of the object that is getting reflected. To be careful only. So we call it a Kutastha Chaitanyam. Kutastha means the unwell. That which is changeless is what is Kutastham. So that is changeless entity. In spite, I may be folding my hand, I may be opening my hand, I may be rotating my hand, but that part of the light that is falling on it is not changing, is unrotated and unchangeable, and that's what we call it a Kutastham. Like anvil doesn't change when we beat things on it. So when we are doing all sorts of things with the hand, I may do dancing, all that, but same light falling on the hand, and there is no difference in the light, but even though difference in the reflecting medium, the medium is changing. So that's what we need to understand here. There is a general wall, that's what is the general light falling, that is called Kutastha Chaitanyam. Now whenever the thought rises, then there is a specific, that part is illumining the thought also, because whenever there is a subtle, there is a reflection also occurs, because consciousness is everywhere. Wherever there is a subtle material, it has a capacity to reflect the consciousness, and therefore there is a reflection of the light that is falling on the thought. And that thought is falling in the general of this. Suppose if I have waves here on the hand, there is a general light that is falling on the hand, and also there is a waves that are rising in the hand, also being illumined by that same light. And that part is picturized as a general wall, and sunlight is the pure Sachidananda, which is all pervading, and that part of the sunlight that is falling on the wall, we call it is a general light that is falling on it. And there are mirrors that are there, that on same sunlight is falling on the mirrors and getting reflected by the mirror onto the wall, and there are bright spots there. So bright spots, you see, every time a thought rises, there is a brightness there. So many thoughts, and therefore many bright spots on the same wall. And the same wall is illumined, but in between there is a bright spots also due to thoughts. Now between the thoughts, between the mirror reflections, there is a sandhi, the gap is there, and that gap is also being illumined, but by the general light. So you have Samanya and Visishta. Samanya is general across the board, that's on the wall, and Visishta is through the mirrors that are falling on the wall. So there is a spotlights called Visishta, depending upon the nature of the mirror, and Samanya is in between. This is being analyzed, and now this example is applied to how knowledge takes place via thoughts. Now this is a very specific Vedantic explanation, because you cannot understand this through any objective sciences. So never say that one day the objective sciences will not be able to analyze this. They cannot analyze only because the objective tools are not amenable for this analysis. They cannot use objective tools by analysis. They can only analyze up to the neurons and all that arise. They can say specific neurons are arises in specific parts, but you need a code that converts the plus minus charges of the neurons into a software like a thought. So just as in the computer program, when you do programming, you are only pressing buttons, and the buttons is only electrical charge, and the electrical charges have to be converted by depending upon the program, and there is a program code provided, and that converts the electrical, which is essentially a hardware part, into a software. And that program code Lord has provided as though a secret code that cannot be tampered with, and he converts essentially the plus minus charges into thought, which is essentially subtle. And this kind of this analysis and analysis of what is that code and all that objective tools have no means to, because they don't know how to evaluate, and even the mind. Recently there was an article by you can go into my Facebook and see reference to that article, where the psychologists are sitting, and in America there is a meeting, I suppose, and there is a report of that meeting where they are now up against the wall to defining what is the mind. So they say mind cannot study the mind cannot be objectified. And they say, then how do you know you have a mind? Without knowing the mind. So when I say I have a mind, that means I know, but I am a knower, and this is a known. It is an object. But this says the mind cannot be objectified. This is what the Western psychology is up. Whereas the philosophers, Indian philosophers and psychologists, they have already analyzed mind is also a matter, and we call it a subtle matter, and the subtle matter is also an objectifiable inert entity which has to be illumined by consciousness. Consciousness has to fall on the subtle in order to reflect it for me to know that I am. So how objectification of the mind also occurs, objectification of the thought in the mind also occurs, all that is being analyzed exhaustively. Now we are looking at how that kind of science which is not available in any objective field. That's why Vedanta becomes a pramana for this, that because objective tools are not amenable to analyze this. People ask why Vedanta? For this reason. Why do I need to know that? That's a separate question. Do I need to know who am I, what am I doing, and what is that analysis requires? An inquiry. Inquiry is done by the thought only. So inquiry, vichara, has to be done by the thought process, and the very thought itself is being analyzed now, because I am trying to find out who is the knower of the thought. Because who am I? I am the knower of the thought. Thought is also an object, but who am I involves to make sure that I don't get confused between the subject and the object in and understanding what is the subject. That's why we need to have an analysis of what is the mind, what is the thought, and how does the knowledge occurs. So here in the third sloka that we just did, is we'll chant again. Chidabhasa visishtanam tathaneka diyamaso sandhim dhyam abhavam cha bhasayat pravicyatam. So tada chidabhasaha visishtanam. So along the specific chidab, the reflected consciousness along the particular thoughts, whenever the thought arises, aneka dhyam sandhim. In between this between the many thoughts there is a sandhi. The gap between them is also being analyzed where there is no thought. So absence of the thought is also knowledge. That's what being analyzed here. Say whenever the thought rises, I know it. Whenever there is no thought, I know it, because I am conscious of the absence of the thought also. And when I go to deep sleep state, I am conscious of the absence of subject, object, thoughts. And therefore, what is there? It is nothing but absence, is nothing but ignorance only. That's what he is going to analyze deeply in the next few slokas. And it is very important to understand what is the deep sleep state, what is the waking state, how thought arises, and what's between that, and what exactly is meditation also. People think that you concentrate on between the thoughts. You concentrate, you eliminate the thoughts, and absence of a thought, you are there. So how do I know the absence of the thought? That's also a knowledge, and what exactly is that also has to be understood also. So here we are coming to the grips of the problem in terms of the analysis of the meditation as well as the knowledge, how the knowledge takes place, and this is very important to know in terms of who am I inquiring, and or what is this mind, if the mind is required to inquire, all that. Here it says pravivicyatam sandhim dhyam abhavam cha bhasayan pravivicyatam. Here it says between the gaps of between the thoughts, this also a knowledge occurs. Sandhim dhyam abhavam. So absence of the thought is also a knowledge, and bhasayan, that which illumines the absence of the thought. Pravivicyatam, one has to inquire. So absence of the thought is also knowledge also. So it says aviditam va, aviditam va. So in the Kenopanishad it says absence of the knowledge, absence of the ignorance also I know. These are very interesting also. Do you know Ashoka? He said, do you know this chair? Yes, I know the chair, because they say I see it. Or do you know, suppose you don't know Ashoka. Do you know Ashoka? Say, I don't know Ashoka. How do you know that you don't know Ashoka? So I know that I don't know. So do you know Gaga Babu? I know that I don't know Gaga Babu. That means no, ignorance of Gaga Babu also I know. So is it a thought or is it an absence of the thought? I have no presence of Gaga Babu thought. That I know is what is the absence of the knowledge of the thought. So I have the knowledge of the presence as well as the absence of the thought. So you have to be careful. So even the absence of the thought is only objectifiable entity that is being illumined. One has to be careful. So silence is, I am in the silence, I am in the thought also. So I am there in the thought, I am there in the thought. But even the silence is not I am. Silence is also an objectifiable entity that I am conscious of. So how do I know I was silent? Because there is no thoughts. So that means I am conscious of the absence of the thought also. That's why he says, pravivicyatam. Pravivicya means this has to be inquired. Inquired how? Using a thought again. I have to analyze absence of the thought using a thought again. Very interesting statement. We'll go into the sloka 4 as these things become clearer. Now we analyze how the presence of the thought as well as the absence of the thought is discussed using an example of a pot. So sloka 4. Ghataikakara dhista chit ghataikakara dhista chit ghatameva bhasayet ghatasya jnatata brahma ghatasya jnatata brahma chaitanyena vabhasate together ghataikakara dhista chit ghatameva vabhasayet ghatasya jnatato brahma chaitanyena vabhasate. Ghataika akara. So the akara is the shape of ghata, is the shape of the pot. Dhistachit, the consciousness is illumining the shape of the pot or vritti of the pot. Ghata eva avabhasayet. So illumination of the pot only, akara is the attribute of the pot only that is being illumined. So pot is the name for the locus of the attribute. We have to understand here a little bit. Ghatasya jnatata brahma chaitanyena avabhasate. Ghatasya jnatata, the knowledge of the pot, ghatasya jnatata, that this is a pot. This is a pot is the knowledge of the pot. So knowledge of the pot, brahma chaitanyena avabhasate, is known by the Brahma Chaitanya, by pure consciousness illumining that also. So there are two things here. One has to be here the whole perception is being condensed in some form. He may be explaining later more details. So when I say it is a part, so here I'm going to present first the Vedantic explanation and also present a scientific, because I'm coming from a science background, I'll present the science explanation and see where they merge and where they differ. This has to be understood because we are now looking at the little bit objectifiable entity up to some point, then something that beyond the objective tools. So we have to demarcation of where the objective sciences can function, and after that where objective sciences we have to leave and take Vedanta aspect. You have to use Vedanta everything, then you can do it also. So we will provide first Vedantic explanation, because Vedantic explanation is based on at that time where the science was not developed to the degree to analysis. So first Vedantic explanation. When I say this is a pot, how do I know? So because the pot, because I see. Therefore I see, therefore it is a pot. So what do you see? So I'm seeing a pot. So from the Vedanta point, the way I am seeing the pot is the mind has to be there. This is called Drupdusya Viveka, analyzed by Swami Vidyaranya only. He has written that book also, Drupdusya Viveka, about 45 verses are there. So here the mind travels along with the senses, goes out and grasps the object. So that's how the explanation of the perception occurs according to the Vedanta. It's not according to the Vedanta actually, according to Mimamsa. Advaita adopts the Mimamsic position. Vedanta doesn't discuss all this. So we have to be careful. Oh, this is the Vedantic explanation. This is the Mimamsa explanation also adopted by Advaita, because it's found logical enough to accept it, because there is no other alternative explanations also at that time. So the mind along with the senses goes out and grasps the object, and in the form of grasping the object, it forms a vritti. That's called vritti vyapti. Vritti is a thought is raised in the mind. Where is the mind now? Mind has gone out and come back, although as though you can think of that a thought is arising in the mind, and mind, according to Vedanta, travels also. So in the Mahabharata, the Yaksha Prashna is there, where Yaksha asks the Dharmaraja different questions. The Yamadharmaraja comes in the form of a Yaksha and asks questions to Dharmaraja, and in that he asks, what is the fastest thing that moves? He says, you think according to the science, it is light is the highest speed, right? Limiting velocity is the light velocity. But according to Dharmaraja, what is fastest is the mind. Mind can throw all the way to the sun and come back. So mind is the fastest thing according to him. Because according to the theory, mind goes out along with the senses and grasps the object, provided senses can travel. So senses can only travel up to some point, because I cannot see objects far away. I cannot hear objects very far away. And that far away is coming closer and closer now as the age is taking its toll. So I cannot hear all the way, and I cannot see, I cannot taste unless the object comes into my mouth. So you may have a laddu, but I cannot taste unless I put it in my mouth. So object has to be very close to the senses here. So the degree of closeness differs depending upon the sense object also. And that which is beyond the sense limits has to be known by some other way. So if I cannot see, I have to use anumana pramana or logical deduction from what I see. I have to deduce what I don't see. I don't see a force. You think a force is you think that, say, apple is falling. If everybody could see the gravitational force, so you don't need a Newton to know, to deduce. But what I see, there is a movement of the apple down, and one has to deduce that apple cannot fall down by itself. There is a force dragging it. So that's how a gravitational force. So force cannot be seen, but one force is there to move one from an object from one place to other place. So if I move my hand, there is a force required from moving one place to other place, even though I don't see it. But that there is a force is obvious from the effects of the motion. So same way, there is a force that really involved by movement. And the same way, we use that there is a force for creation also, because any change of state involves a driving force. A driving force, what we call change of creation, is called the Maya. So in the science, you have to ask, people say Big Bang theory. I may be diverting a little bit. Big Bang theory, the question we ask is essentially, how did the Big Bang occur? They can only talk about the Big Bang, after a millionth of a second after that. They cannot analyze the Big Bang itself, or where it occurred, how did it occur. All those questions cannot be, because what they call it a singularity. Singularity means we don't know. So where did the Big Bang occur? Everywhere. Everywhere is a concept of space. Space was not there before Big Bang. So that itself is a problem in analysis. So science have a problem in understanding also. So all they can escape is that we don't know, or it is a singularity. Singularity means we have no way of knowing it. But the question is, how did it bang? What are the rules governing the bang itself? Because those rules have to be pre-existing for the bang. And the fact is, how did we come up with the Big Bang? Because the galaxies are moving farther and farther away, and if you interpolate backwards, they have to come to a point, and the point is where they started, from which they moved, and that's where it's called Big Bang. Where is the point? point is where the fellow is sitting there and doing the extrapolation. So wherever the observer is trying to observe by extrapolation, that's where the bang occurred. If I'm sitting here, that's where the galaxies are coming to meeting here. If I'm sitting far away from here, in billions of light years away, and sitting there and try to analyze where the Big Bang occurred, that's where the Big Bang occurred. In fact, the funny thing is, the microscope is discovering the new galaxies are being formed now. Billions and billions of light years away, new galaxies are formed. Don't think that the new galaxies are formed now, because it must have formed billions and billions light years ago, because the light that is transmitted from that is now reaching me. That's what is called light year. Light year means it takes a year for the light to travel. So billions and billions of light years far away, that means the light that has from there has come to me now. That means by now it has been formed and it has evolved already so much. But from their point, if somebody is sitting there, we are just forming now. Because the light from this is now reaching him now, and that he won't know the future, he will know the past only. So one has to be careful. That's why Big Bang occurred everywhere, and everywhere is a concept of space, but there was no space at that time. So these are all called singularities. That means you cannot really explain properly. That's a problem with the objective science. So don't think that objective scientists know everything. They can't even analyze what a thought is, what a mind is, and so on. And here we are talking about how perception occurs. So the mind travels along with the senses, grasp the object. What do they grasp? According to Vedanta, they grasp the object and in the form of attributive content, because senses can only sense the attributes of the object. We have to be careful here. When I say the senses can grasp the attributes of the object, how exactly it attributes, that one has to be analyzed, because it's modeled with the statement that along with the attributes, and it forms a thought. So all this, if you really deeply analyze the attributive content, that is, in the case of a pot, it is akara. Akara means the shape of the pot. Because we are not talking about the taste of the pot or a touch of the pot, because we're only looking far away. Only we are seeing the pot shape. So akara is called Gatasya akara dhihi.